welcome to today's session. We're gonna get people. We're gonna give people a couple minutes to join here. Usually started a few minutes after the hour. Just a reminder, please make sure to turn off your video as you're joining. Otherwise, you'll like pop up in the recording, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but want to make sure we give Victoria all the attention. Nice. Got a good showing today. I'm excited to go through this. Feel free, please, everyone, make sure to use the chat feature. You can drop questions in there, leave comments, notes. We've got Charles, who's on our Catalyst team, and he'll be looking through and responding to messages and then making sure that we answer all of them here at the end. Awesome. All right. I think for sake of time, let's get into things. And Charles, if you can just keep letting people in as they join. Cool. Well, thank you, Victoria, for joining today. We're really excited session on learning about how to build newsletters. This is something that you've been doing for a while, and I'll let you give a proper introduction, but excited to go through it today with you, how to use AI, how to build workflows to help with newsletter production. And then as a reminder to everyone here as well, we are going through a full cohort on Maven on how to use founder-led content. We will talk about newsletters a little bit in that cohort. It actually kicks off today. And for everyone that joined today, we'll be giving you a 30% discount to use if you want to sign up still. So there's still room. We have a couple more spots. And I will be sharing that at the end of today's session. So with that said, Victoria, I'll pass it over to you if you want to say hi.
Hey guys, so nice to meet you all. Excuse the voice and sniffles. I'm a little under the weather. If you see me mute and go off cam, I'm just trying to be respectful and not contaminate you through the screen in some capacity. But thanks, Will, for having me on. I'm really excited to share this with you. I'm a New York-based founder and operator. I've been in business for 5 years as a entrepreneur and another 10 in operations and marketing strategy. So really excited to bring some of this knowledge. I think something that Will and I have in common is when AI started coming out with all these tools, we started really geeking out on like ways to save ourselves time. I know for myself as a founder and fractional exec, I support multiple teams. My team it's called Front Desk, and basically we do embedded operations and marketing support for agencies and solopreneurs. And so it always has been one of those challenges of where do I find time to do my own content? How do I do content for the business that is up to my standard without having to do my own research, sit there or like train someone? And with the help of AI, it's reduced our time. I know Will was saying 2 hours. Actually, I was playing around and I got it down to 30 minutes, which is really awesome once you do your homework. So I hope that today's session is simple, digestible. I have a handbook for you after that you can take back with you that has all of the prompts and everything that you need to be successful in doing this. And then I'm always accessible to you via LinkedIn, and I'll also add my email. So if you have questions after or you're struggling in a certain part, I'm happy to help you through that. So I'm going to just jump in, share my screen. Are we good there? Yeah, so actually, my newsletter nerddom actually came from my personal brand. So I have a community for women in leadership and business called Minding Your Own Business. And everyone was asking for the TLDR on all this news. And between working and running my own agency, it was very much one of those burdensome asks. And when we were able to create this new workflow, it actually helped our team not only sustain and nurture our community, but it also helped build a bigger subscriber base that also drives revenue into my business operations, which is really cool. So, like Will said, if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Charles will be monitoring them at the end, and let's follow along. All right, so I gave you a little bit about me already, but if you want to get a hold of me, my handles are all there. My name's Victoria Mariscal. You can find me on LinkedIn there. I'm also mutuals with Will and Charles, so you can find us through there. So now let's talk about newsletters. So the math isn't mathing. How much time do you spend doing research, finding what's relevant, finding what's trendy, finding an article or a piece of news that is going to inform your ideal customer? It actually takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of research. It takes a lot of knowing where to source this information that's credible and true. Most of the time, you're spending anywhere between 190 and 330 hours a year on one piece of content, one channel of content. Imagine how much time, if you break that down for your hourly rate, that is, and how much money you're leaving on the table. Um, when you think about this per week, whether you train someone or not, anywhere between 4 and 7 hours is someone's average. But for a newer writer, it can be anywhere between 10 and 20, depending on what the subject matter is and how dense it is. Not to mention the rounds of feedback, the need to draft things, run it through your legal team, as well as finding and editing imagery and getting permissions for that. It just doesn't make sense. It takes so much time. And that's one of the biggest hurdles that people face when creating newsletters. So you've probably tried AI. You probably went into ChatGPT, told it to be a subject matter expert and expert copywriter and researcher, and you probably told it to write you a newsletter based on current viral trends. And if you did that, super cool, awesome, good for you. And if it's working for you, I love that for you. But the reality is, most likely, you got something between a LinkedIn robot and like a boring marketing textbook that has no actual personality or substance or shows who you are as a founder of your brand. Now, you probably got frustrated, kept yelling at your AI tool, and then just decided, well, I'm going to scrap this. I'm going to go back to doing it manually, or I'm just not going to do it at all. So here's my solution to your problem. You have two phases, three documents, one automation. So that includes everything you need, beginning to end, kept it on one hand. You can count all the steps that you need, which is really simple. There's two phases to this. Now, the thing I want to say about newsletter writing is you need to be clear on your intention for the newsletter. What do you want it to convey to your ideal reader? And for that, you need to do your homework. The homework takes the longest part because you're going to build your voice, you're going to build a knowledge base, and you're going to use the prompts that we provide for you so that the AI actually sounds like you. What makes a newsletter successful is when people are writing from their point of view and when people can relate and laugh and hear you talking to them through the words that you're writing. And we found a way to do that with AI. Then the second part, once you've done all your homework and you've developed your tone of voice document, your content buckets and categories, and the actual prompt, you make your automation. And we'll show you exactly what tools you need and which order to build them in. Perfect. So phase one, first you need to teach AI how you talk. There's patterns to how you speak. Whether you are a content creator or not, there are ways to pull content pieces that sound authentically like you. Whether you are running a sales call or an internal team meeting, whether you are on a podcast or whether you've like dabbled in blogging at all or any social media content, whether it's LinkedIn, sometimes even people's Instagrams will give you a sense of their patterns. AI's job is to detect your patterns and to understand how you speak, how you think, and how your flow of writing is. Everyone's writing is slightly different. Depending on what the newsletter topics are, they can be more provocative, they can be sassier, they can be more focused on thought leadership pieces. And then there's also newsletters that are explicitly intended for technical writers or professional columns. Wherever you stand in that metric, it's really important that your newsletter has a flavor of you as a founder, whether it's your introductory note or your commentary on the piece of news that you're sharing with your audience. Whatever that is, those 5 to 10 pieces of content that feel most like you are going to teach the AI how to sound like you. Will?
Is this something that you could, if you have an existing newsletter, that you could feed in like current, like ones you've written before and have it train on that?
Yes, absolutely. And actually, if you already have a current newsletter, it's a lot simpler because you already have your template for the AI to follow. Also, you want to tell the AI what you would never do. What are the things that you, as a founder, find super cringe? Everyone hates M dashes. Tell the AI not to do that, right? Are you an emoji person? Are you very exclamatory and self-expressed? Some people drop F-bombs in their newsletter. Your AI needs to know what it can and cannot say. So the prompt that we provide is also going to ask you some questions so that it can better understand how to match, as Gen Z calls it, your vibe.
Yeah, I think another thing on this as well that I'll just add is a lot of people over complicate or overthink how to instruct AI. It's no different than if you were teaching someone, a person, how to write your newsletter, right? And write out specific guides and language that you use or you don't use, and pretend like you're just giving feedback to another human. It's quite similar.
Exactly. Also, depending on your newsletter and the intention, you want to identify your audience relationship. How do they know you? Are you a colleague? Are you someone that you want them to hire to do a job? Are you giving like peer membership or mentorship in some capacity? Are you giving like a big sis or big bro persona and like personal advice? Whatever that is, it's important for you to understand how you relate to the audience because the intention of writing is to build trust and affinity with whatever it is that you are expressing in your newsletter. So, an example of a doc and what this will look like. Can you see the doc here? Beautiful. So this is an example of like what the document would look like. So once you've entered in all the prompts, which will be in the handbook that we provide, it's going to spit out this giant document of information that you will later use for your automation. Okay, perfect. We're back to the slideshow, right? Perfect. All right, so this is your AI newsletter toolkit. You'll get your three prompts, your one system, and the newsletter that actually sounds like you. It'll be included at the footnotes, and we'll be sending an email with all the data after so that you can play around with it on your own time. Now teaching AI what it needs to know, like I mentioned, these are all the missing pieces that you need to have. The more information you give the AI, the more accurate it will be. That's step one. Step two, when it spits out that first newsletter, you're going to notice mistakes and patterns that you'll want to edit. You can create an additional document that gives it the rules to follow based on the rewrite or first draft edit that you make so that it can be learning as you go. You only need to do this once or twice. Once you have the solid framework and the knowledge base set to go, it's very simple and it's a one-click stop. Um, you also need to train AI on what your audience is going to care about. This is very critical. If you have an existing newsletter, it's a lot simpler. You already have your categories, you create your template. Here's what I want to talk about in each section. Create a template and create a prompt that helps aggregate information based on these current topic points. If you're not sure, we have the prompt to support you in developing that. You can tell the AI, hey, I'm a digital marketing agency and I'm looking to educate clients on the importance of having a content engine. And it will develop all of your content categories based off of that. So it's going to have information like why your audience cares about it, what your category name is. It's going to filter criteria for you, which is very critical because that's going to help it in its research phase. It's going to give it the rules and then also your point of view and angle. So, why this matters. A certain thing to note as well when you're developing content categories, I like to tell it what not to do. Like, my newsletter is not allowed to get political or religious. My newsletter doesn't report on things not related or adjacent to the business that we operate. And through those rules, it allows the filtering of the research phase to occur a lot more quickly. I saw a lot of questions. Okay. I can answer some of them here. I saw Matt, you asked what are the best ways to teach AI how you talk up to date? I like to update my knowledge base once a month. I just put like a calendar reminder, and then I have someone on my team pull all of the most recent podcasts and recent conversations I've had, and then we add it to the original document. So that one document is always growing and always updating itself. Perfect. Yeah, I also love M dashes as a writer, but it's really been ruined by ChatGPT, unfortunately. Oh, right.
I'll never stop.
Yeah, exactly. So then telling AI how to pull it all together, you have all your documents that you've used your handbook on. You've defined your role, your structure, your voice rules, your content rules, formatting, and quality checks. Now we're going to create your tone of voice document. This is the second document that will be eventually entered into your automation tool. It's going to notice all your language patterns, your audience relationship, your tone of voice. We have an example doc in here that we pulled for you. So you can check that out as well after this call. Before you automate anything, you need these documents or your automation will not work. It will actually sound like AI fluff. So it's very important that you do your homework, invest those 3 or 4 hours, collect everything that you need to get started so that you can focus on this. Because once you're able to complete this, actually, the rest is very easy. So now phase two, you want to map out your automation. And for automations, I love using Relay. I know a lot of people use Zapier, and there's so many like trendy hot tools. Relay has just been great. I love the AI assistant. If I ever get stuck or an automation doesn't work, we actually named her Riley on my team because she didn't have a name. So the relay assistant's name is Riley, and Riley's super helpful. So if you ever get stuck in a certain point in your automation process, if you're not sure what flow should be used and the simplest way to get to your end goal, then the first thing I always say is like map it out. Lucky for you, we've mapped it out here for you. But if you ever have a challenge, use your AI assistant and also think through like less is more. Keep it really simple and straightforward. Sometimes what I notice when I'm making automations is like I'm overthinking the flow in my head because I think there's more steps than what there actually are. And by using the assistant, it helps me clarify where the pain points are and helps me get to my end goal in the least amount of steps. So the tools are going to do the hard part for you. First, you need to determine when do you need the newsletter by? You need to schedule a trigger so that I can run the data. I like to do it, excuse me, I like to do it 2 days prior to my newsletter launching because it gives me time to edit my document, add any visuals that I need to edit, and upload it into my selected newsletter provider of choice, which I love Beehive. It's super customizable. You can brand it to your personal brand or your business brand, and the analytics are phenomenal there. So you schedule your trigger. It's going to fetch all the documents, fetch your categories, extract the list. And this is a step here that I want to flag. If you have an existing blog, to help yourself with SEO and backlinks, my recommendation is that your newsletter should always carry a section of, in case you missed it on the blog this week, and feature a blog link. So it drives traffic back to your website and helps you grow in your SEO and your search engine abilities. So extracting the blog list is really critical. I don't recommend more than 3 blog highlights. It's up to you. And it varies depending on what your newsletter content already is. Your research stories is going to be sponsored by Perplexity. It's the best tool to pull data from all different kinds of news sources. And then Claude is the one that actually writes your newsletter for you because that's where the knowledge base is built off of, and that's what it's trained to write for you. Will?
I was just going to say, can you talk a little bit about how you think about different models? Like we're referencing, we're using Perplexity, we're using one for the extract blog list, and then one for writing. How do you think about the different models for different use cases?
That's great. So in regards to Claude, I think Claude is the most customizable. It's the most how do you say? Like the way that it builds your knowledge, it's the most reliable in nailing it on the first draft because it has
Mhm.
that knowledge-based capability. I love ChatGPT for extracting information quickly, which is why we use it for the AI step because it can very easily access a public website and pull links for you. So if I need something quickly, that's where that goes because it's a great research tool to get you started. Perplexity is awesome because it has access to a lot of paywalls and it breaks through those paywalls to get you the news articles you need to generate a summary that leads people to read the rest of that news article. And then my last thing is most people use Google Suite. So it's the easiest platform to build everything on and like extract information for all of the other data points to talk to one another. And then let me see if we have any other questions.
We'll have John
Ooh.
surface them.
Yeah, okay, cool. Um, all right, so what the automation actually does. So let me stop sharing really quick so I can pull and show you the live automation here. One quick moment. All right, so now that we have all of our documents, the next thing we're going to do is we'll share this. Um, great. So now you can see here, we're in Relay. Here's your Relay app assistant. So if you have any questions, you can ask it here. So you could see here, it's reading our documents, and that's the step one. From there, it's going to scrape my website's blog, which stay tuned. Maybe we can do a part two, Will, and teach people how to like auto generate blogs for SEO optimized results.
Hmm.
But my blog is here. So it pulls the most recent blogs to do it in case you missed it. It's going to extract all of the titles and URLs from there. And then it's going to prompt Perplexity to research the stories based on the content categories that have been prompted here. Claude writes the newsletter based on all the previous steps and based on the template that it's been provided. It creates your draft in a document and then it sends you an email. So let's start a test run and see what happens. And
Cool.
what I like about Relay is you could see where it's working and it'll tell you exactly the step that it got stuck at if it gets stuck. So you can work with its assistant to troubleshoot what's happening.
Yeah, it looks like this is moving pretty quickly, but it'll be good to go through each step and kind of understand how we're setting those up, because we are doing quite a few steps here.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the step one, like I said, your documents and your homework, those are growing docs that you just continue to add to over time. Once this automation is in place, you don't really have to build it out anymore. The secret sauce is really in your two docs. And from there, we have the AI scrape your blog to pull the articles, and it has ChatGPT translate the most recent ones based on the prompt that it's given. So it's taking, if it's scraping the blog, it can scrape a year's worth of history, and obviously we don't want all of that to be included. So you need the ChatGPT function to go in there and select the ones based on the directive it's given and to not repeat itself, which is also a critical step. And then from there, it researches your stories using Perplexity based on the content categories it gives you. So whether it's business, tech and innovation, and stablecoin news, for example, if those are your three categories, it will pull 3 to 5 articles that are currently trending online based on that and
Mm,
inform your reader based on your point of view and opinion that has already been developed through your document steps.
got it. So those are really the source of truth of who you are and what your perspective is.
Absolutely. So that's why the documents itself and the prompts and the questions that you answer about your audience and about who you are in your writing do's and don'ts in your business are so critical because that informs all of the other data points that are pulling information for you.
Interesting. Can we see the output?
Yeah, let me pull up my email really quick and find it.
Okay, so this is sending a draft to you in your email.
Yes,
Very cool.
is so it'll say your newsletter draft is ready for review. Okay, hold on. It hasn't gotten here yet. Give me 1 second. 12:25.
Any questions from anyone as we're pulling this up? Feel free to drop them in the chat. No question is a bad question.
Yeah, definitely no questions, a bad question. All right, so you could see here your newsletter draft is ready for review. And here's the output. So it gives you subject line options. And this is where like the human element comes in. Your newsletter will be at about an 80% from here. You choose certain aspects of what you wanted to say at the end of the day. So your subject line option, you can choose one of them and you edit that. It has an intro because I personally like to have some sort of like personalization at the beginning of my newsletter that kind of lends into the rest of the framing that we're writing for. So it shows here that like we're talking more about team performance, we're talking about founders are spending more on marketing, it's talking about latest marketing trends, which is interesting. And it's also citing your sources. So it shows your link to where it pulled the data from and how it's weaving it into your opinion of said articles and like what's happening in the market.
Mm.
Um, see here. So I like to test all my links. The automation gap isn't about technology, so it's talking about automations and how people are using that. And then the bigger pattern. So, okay, here's what we're learning about all of this. In case you missed the blog, read these now. And so from, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I want to talk on about the workflow a little bit, but you can finish
Yeah.
up here.
No, it's okay. So this is from here, what I would do is I check all my links. I check to see, okay, does this make sense? I still do a human read through. And then the last element that I would say is pulling images. There is a prompt that you can use to pull images on brand. It pulls from Pinterest usually. I'm happy to share that in a separate session. But this gets you to your draft one in, I mean, you guys saw how fast it was. It was very quick. And from there, you can iterate and make sure that it's hitting all the points that you're looking to make.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Victoria, do you want to pull up the relay again?
Yeah, of course. Hold on 1 second.
Looks like question on yeah, so um I'll answer the question on like LLM costs. So Claude is definitely a more expensive model, and we're using Sonnet here.
Mhm.
And you can see Relay nicely lets you test workflows for free. So you can see it would have cost 214 tokens, but ended up costing zero. And for final kind of draft things, or something that needs more, um, experience, it is worth using a more expensive model like Claude Sonnet. And that's simply because it's going to be using higher context and more reasoning, um, as well as being able to produce something that's a little bit higher quality. And if you think about 214 token costs, definitely cheaper than hiring a copywriter or the time you would have taken to write it yourself. So it's definitely worth it. And as you're testing and iterating, again, Relay nicely lets you do it for free.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it just depends on where you're hiring a copywriter, right? There's a global gig economy in motion these days. Um, I will say a good copywriter is anywhere between 30 and $50 an hour. And they're doing things manually and I mean, I've done my newsletter manually, and it does take me anywhere between 4 and 10 hours, depending on what I'm writing about. And so, if you do the math on that, the cost of investing in your LLM tool is absolutely worth the output that you receive, especially if you take the time at the beginning to inform your tone of voice and your context category documents. Those 3 or 4 hours give you a huge ROI at the end of the day
Yeah.
and help build your brand credibility.
Can we dive into some of your prompts, Victoria?
Yeah, for sure. Let me pull up the PDF really quick. One sec. Does anyone have any other questions? I know the biggest scare is always cost. Like, how much does this cost? And when I look at my subscription costs, I also got very nervous. But when I actually ran the P&L and all of the numbers, it made it very clear to me that it was absolutely worth it. One second.
And I see a lot of questions about like which LLMs to use when. And there are some, I think the only thing that really matters for workflows like this is like the capabilities they have access to. So Perplexity is really good at searching the web in real time, which is why it's being used for, kind of recent stories. And then um, Claude is really good for writing. And oh wow, this is cool. And then the other one to notice is Grok has access to Twitter. So for things that are happening in real time, not necessarily the most credible, because it's obviously just pulling from people's subjective tweets. But that's really the only thing I would say you have to worry about. Other than that, it becomes personal preference. The reality is they're all quite similar at the end of the day of how they handle information. And so using ChatGPT to extract information, Sav, is simply because they have a really high functioning, low cost model. And so it's really good for those kind of like extraction steps.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, it looks like we're looking at a PDF.
Awesome. Let me grab that really quick. Awesome. Okay, so this is your tone of voice stock. When and just to echo Will, your preferred LLM is your preferred LLM. I also recommend like stick to one so that you get comfortable using it and understand the pros and cons of it. And depending on what your newsletter is about, will also help dictate what platforms your LLM is pulling info from. One thing that I like to add is if you're not sure about your tone of voice, if you're not sure about where to start, pull content from your favorite creators that are already doing it, that already have the million subscribers. Pull that content, have your LLM learn from that, and have it develop your tone of voice, and then work backwards from there. That's another piece of advice that I give too. So when you're looking at your prompts, this is kind of you copy and paste. You have to the brackets are where your homework is, right? Your strategic brand, voice, and writing style expert. Your job is to analyze writing samples and create a clear, usable tone of voice document for Catalyst that can guide all future AI assisted writing. And then you're telling it what you're providing and you're giving it specific goals. Something about prompting, the more specific you are, the better your output will be. So being general doesn't flow here. Like you want to be very, very specific. So in this first document, the more content pieces that you gather, the better your output will be based on this prompt because it's really taking in everything that you've given it and going to break down and analyze all of your writing. And by the way, if it's a podcast recording, you can scrape the transcript from there and make it into a writing piece. All right. So from there, it's going to analyze your writing style. It's going to take a look at every single part of what you say, how you say, what your relationship is, and just kind of get a sense of who you are as a speaker. From there, it creates your tone of voice document, and then it formats. Oh, sorry. And then it formats everything to be that final tone of voice. Okay, hold on. I escaped that. I apologize. Any
And
questions on that, Will?
yeah, something else I want to add to this is when you're using Relay or a lot of the workflow tools now, they have a co-pilot on the side. And if you tell it what you want it to do, um, it will do a very good job at uh, taking a first attempt at creating that prompt for you. And so a lot of people get caught up with how to write the perfect prompt. And I think a lot of people online make it seem a little bit more challenging than it needs to be. But if you give it context of what you're trying to accomplish and then what you're looking for as an output, it does a really good job of constructing that prompt in an effective way.
I also wanted to tag in that I use ChatGPT a lot to help me create prompts. And something that people get stuck in is, oh, how do I? It takes me so much time to type in the directions for what I want my LLM to do. ChatGPT has a talk to text feature. I literally brain dump and ramble everything I want it to create, and it creates the structure and the output. So it allows me to be verbally as detailed as I need to be without spending those 5 minutes typing in giant paragraphs. And then from there, it's able to generate what it is I need. So, like, be creative with it. You don't have to sit there typing things in. You can talk to it and it will do your text to talk feature or talk to text. So, building your knowledge base in content categories, this is um, your step here. So, you need to open your prompt AI. It's going to give you a briefing folder. You'll create your project, upload your documents, and then it's going to then part two, define your content categories. So you copy and paste your prompt below. And it's going to prompt you to answer some questions. So before you start, ask me questions and wait for my answers. What topics do I already cover or want to cover? Are there any topics I specifically want to avoid? What does my audience need to stay informed about? When my audience shares my newsletter, what kind of stories do they share most? Once you have my answers, build a content category document with the following for each category: clear descriptive name, what it covers, why my audience cares, and rules around when to include a story. So, giving it clear criteria for deciding if a story belongs in your newsletter and when to skip a story that potentially would not be related to what you're writing about. What angle or perspective is this going to be written in? And then 3 to 5 perplexity search queries that it generates for you based on all the data that you've already given it. So after you run your prompt, this gives you your newsletter writing system. It turns your research into a newsletter because it prompts your perplexity to run search queries from your content categories document. So reiterating, your content category document is your source of truth for what perplexity will then research. And then it gives all the prompts here below for you to follow as well. You just copy and paste that in there. It tells the prompt what it's going to be given, what its job is, what the core instructions are, and then it provides the structure for the newsletter. Here's where you have to manually go in and align that this is the format or template in which you want the newsletter to spit out the data points and the writing. So in mine specifically, I wanted there to be a personal intro. Then I wanted there to be curated news and stories, and then a supporting section. And in this case, mine was the blog, and then a closing reflection, question for a reader, call to action, or a soft sign up, matching the established tone rules. And then it gives it all of your tone of voice rules, your content rules. It generates everything for you. So by the time it works through Perplexity, it knows exactly what to research and what to provide for your newsletter template. Any questions? I know we have a lot in the chat. And then from here, it walks you through how to build it. Um, Start with your part one, and then the best newsletter letter is the one that like hits people's inboxes, right? So this prompt is meant to help you get there faster, for people to relate to you and to build that like personal take on the news that you're reporting in your newsletter. Right? Any questions about that?
Looks like we have a question from Matt about using Relay to create separate newsletters. Absolutely. I think with Victoria's structure, if you just give it different inputs in those Word documents, it will be able to help structure it. I personally have one. We have one that goes out every week that's more educational and it's more of a tactical playbook on how to do something related to content marketing or AI workflows. And then we have a second one that's just a recap of our upcoming events. We do these lightning lessons each week. And so we have two different newsletters that are created fully from Relay's workflow.
And similarly, I also have one that's more educational, and then we have one that's very light, fun, very like girly puppy and trendy. So it very much depends on, again, your target audience, what's the intention of the newsletter, and noting that this is customizable based on whatever you tell it you wanted to create. All right. Any other questions?
We have another question from Sav about, I think it's really about quality. The best newsletter you've ever written versus the one that is pure AI. What would you rate as better? Can you ever get your AI newsletters to reach the precise quality of a non-AI slop newsletter?
Yes, if you read my newsletter, 90% of it is AI. I don't call it Slack because we have a pretty big subscriber base, and everyone that tells me in person says that they love reading it, and it gives you an array of topics. When I say 90%, the 10% comes from that intro. AI tries really hard, but unless I'm sending a voice memo of exactly what my intro needs to be that week and translating it from there, it sometimes misses the mark. And I do have to go in there and manually edit that. But I would say this is a collaborative tool, and depending on how personal you want to make your newsletter, will also be indicative of like how much you're going to be required to edit. Use it to help you save time instead of those 10 hours a week. That click that you saw me make saves me tons of time, where now I can focus on making that intro as fun and silly as I want, because now I'm writing for 10 minutes, rather than researching for those 10 hours.
Yeah, I think one thing I'll just reiterate here is the current state of AI is really like a entry level employee, and so treat it as such. It's really good at getting a first draft to you, and use it for that. But know that you're going to have to give it feedback, and you might have to take it and get it over the finish line yourself. And so if you kind of adopt that mindset, makes it a lot easier to kind of interact with.
I also want to flag. So let's say you've been using this for a month, you've been doing significant manual edits. What you can do is you can pull the original drafts that your AI pulls, you pull the edited drafts that you made. You have your AI spin up what it sees as the difference between the two and what it's learning from your writing style, and you feed that into your document so that it is informing the new automations in the following month. If you're patient enough to do your manual edits for about a month of this, by month two, a lot of the changes that you're making are going to be automatically addressed. Things like grammar, um, local jargon, your nuances that make you a writer. The more that you teach it how to sound like you, the more it will. And to Will's point, it's an entry level employee, so it has to be trained. It's collaborating with you.
Awesome. Any last questions for Victoria here or myself? Thank you everyone for participating. Matt, you've been great. Sav, everyone else who's been asking questions. Thank you so much. really makes these sessions more valuable for everyone. Um, I did drop in here as well. We Our cohort kicks off today in a couple of hours. You have 1 hour left to sign up. And I did put a 30% off discount code for everyone who wants to join last minute. It's going to be really interesting talking about founder-led content and how we use it to actually drive sales. So feel free to take a look at that. And then Victoria, I'll let you wrap on your end.
Absolutely. So I want to make sure every one of you gets your PDF files. So there's a QR code here. If you scan it, you can download it from your phone. So super easy to do there. We'll also likely send a follow-up email so you have it there as well. And like I said, feel free to reach out. I'm on LinkedIn. You can send me a quick email as well. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been super fun, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to share some of what I've been learning and nerding out on in this new AI world. And I hope to see you guys again. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Victoria. We'll have you back soon. Bye,
Awesome.
guys.
Bye.